Hey guys, I love JavaScript. It was the first real programming language which I learned. I'm sorry, HTML. And it has allowed me to do a lot of stuff. Even though it's one of the most used languages in the world and powers the majority of the web, it still has some flaws. So let's talk about them. Actually, before we dive in, I'd like to get a look at the history of JavaScript, which I think is weird in itself. The year is 1994, and the brand new shiny Netscape browser is released, which quickly became the most adopted. That's when the Netscape team hired Brendan Eich, I most likely butchered that name, I am so sorry, to develop a new programming language to work with the browser. Now, this language, despite popular belief, doesn't really have to do anything with Java, though it took some inspiration from it, mostly syntax, which means the way you write things. Now, Eich created the language in only 10 days, which is nothing compared to how widely used it is today. This is where we find our first weird thing, and that is the name. JavaScript was meant to be called Mocha, which I love. That name is so fun to say. I'm so mad that's not the official name. But was then renamed to LiveScript. Now, due to the popularity of Java at the time, the Netscape team and another company decided to rename it once again to JavaScript, which, what the heck? Also, Oracle trademarked the name, so like, what? Var, let, and const. Those are the three ways you can declare a variable in JavaScript. Variables in programming are just like variables in math. They substitute something. So you could have a variable named x, and it could equal a number, a string, which is a set of words, and they're very useful. As an example, my YouTube banner is actually a variable, and you see that it uses let. Why are there three different ways to declare a variable? It's kind of weird, I know. Var was the original way you declared a variable. In fact, it stands for variable, and it was pretty easy. The problem with it, though, was that you could create another variable with the exact same name, but with a different value. This may have caused some problems, since you have to be sure that that variable name wasn't already taken. And so in, I think, ECMAScript 6? When was let introduced? And so let is now the new standard keyword, which you would use to declare a variable. And with let, you cannot create a new variable with the same name. It will give you an error, which is very helpful, but brings the question, then why is var still a thing? I really don't get that, honestly. Const, on the other hand, is when a variable should not change. So you would put this as like a name or birthday or something like that. But another weird thing is that you can omit the keyword entirely. So this would work just fine. And so yeah, this might just be a little confusing to newcomers who are starting to learn JavaScript, but just use let. Something else extremely weird about JavaScript is how it handles dates. It's so confusing. I don't even know where to begin. Dates in general are just weird because like they keep changing. We have daylight saving hours, which like messes everything up. So it's a whole other thing. I will not explain that because I'm already confused myself. Yeah, JavaScript is not really good with dates. One thing that does bug me, which is not really a problem, but just like me personally, is that JavaScript, what the heck? If you're trying to get the days of the week, for example, you would use getDay. Now, this doesn't return the actual name of the day. It doesn't return Monday, Tuesday. It returns a value from 0 to 6 because computers always start as 0. That is confusing in general, but you just get used to it. Now, the thing that bugs me is that 0, which would be the first day of the week, is a Sunday. Now, I'm Italian, and in Europe, we have Monday as the first day of the week. So it gets a little confusing when I try to put 0 as Monday and then find out I am wrong. But this also leads to a few design problems. Let's say you're creating a calendar app. What day of the week do you start with? In some countries, like pretty much all of Europe and others, use Monday as the first day of the week. But others, like America, and Japan, use Sunday. So what do you pick? You could let the user choose, but like that's extra code. Why would anyone want to write that? Or you could just decide by yourself. In Google Calendar, actually, the first day of the week is a Monday, but I think you can't actually choose to put a Sunday. But that begs the question, which one should be the default? In Google Calendar, it's a Monday, but Google is based in America, so shouldn't it be a Sunday? It just gets kind of confusing. Arrays. Now, I'm not saying that arrays are weird, I'm just saying they're kind of complex. Arrays are probably one of the most useful things in JavaScript, and they're basically a list. of stuff. You can put numbers, you can put strings, you can put numbers and string, you can make subarrays, you can do pretty much anything with arrays. And there's things called methods which you can put, and they essentially do something with the array. So for example, if you wanted to take out the last item of an array, you do dot pop and 2 parentheses. But why? The names are honestly kind of weird. There is pop, there is splice, there is unsplice, and I mean, who named these? I feel like they could have given them more specific names to help newcomers out, because it's pretty difficult to memorize all of these. The libraries. Oh my god, there are so many. There is React.js, AngularJS, Vue.js, Svelte.js, Next.js, Bootstrap. There is so many libraries. And what libraries are is just a section of pre-written code that makes developing stuff easier. One example would be Bootstrap, where if you wanted to create a button in which when you hover over it, it fills in with color, you would just input this instead of doing this much of CSS. But yeah, JavaScript as a pretty overwhelming amount of them, which could make it confusing to anyone wanting to get into developing stuff with JavaScript. It's essentially analysis paralysis, but with libraries. Semicolons or semicolons, depending on how you say it. You don't even need them half the times. JavaScript is like really good at figuring out what you were trying to say. Semicolons aren't really necessary, unlike Java, where if you don't put a semicolon, your IDE will scream at you. The logo. Now, JavaScript does not have an official logo, but some people have made their own unofficial logos, and I've got to say, the most popular one is very clean. Others, though, not so much. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. Tell me what you think is the weirdest thing about JavaScript, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!